Welcome to the special presentation of Oscar Mike Radio, Veterans Unchained 3.0, battle tested, with me being the guest, if you will, and Gina Alderman being the host. So I am the featured author for this project, which is a big honor for me. I'm loving how this whole project has come together with people who I haven't met before, some familiar faces, and getting to learn about them. But Gina asked if she could talk with me about my part of the book and my experience. Again, we got to see Jan, we've gotten to see Sheila. Now it's my turn, and tomorrow on Veterans Day, you will see Gina and Chris always talk about their stories. So Gina, this is kind of like your ecosystem, your playground, your sandbox. I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can play host on Oscar Mike Radio.
Thank you, Travis. It's an honor that you give me this opportunity to take over the mic from you.
Yep.
You and I have known each other for, I think we met in February of 2022.
Yeah, almost 4 years.
Oh, yeah. So over that time, I've seen you grow as an author. You are already a highly acclaimed and well-established podcast host. I've seen you also grow in other areas, such as being a regular guest appear on C-SPAN. And I know that you've been working on other speaking engagements and broadening your horizons. And the thing that I saw about you, or that I recognized about you in 2022, is that you're a very humble person. And you're the type of person that is confident, but you very rarely toot your own horn, so to speak.
I've been told that a couple times.
And you're a very powerful storyteller, orally, and I've recognized your power also in the written word. And so for me, it was a no-brainer, to ask you to be a featured author in our third book of the Veterans Unchained project series. When I asked you to write your story, you got it to me really super quick, and I'd never seen that happen before. And what your story did, so for the readers that are going to read your story as the first one, they'll see that you set the book up, you set the tone, and you kind of drew the line in the sand, if you will. When I read your story, and I had actually heard this story before, you had shared it with me, but I was touched deeply. And what I was touched the most about was that your leaders back in the 90s, when you were a Marine on active duty, saw the same thing in you that I saw in you in 2022. And it's that you're confident, very competent, and reliable, dedicated. And when you're asked to do, whether it's a task, a project, a mission, you more than rise to the occasion. So I would like you to tell the viewers a little bit about what prompted you to write this particular story about your, what we call in the Navy, your shipmate.
Well, I think my challenge was I got out as a terminal lance corporal. I wasn't, a bad Marine. It's just simply that my job specialty was deprecated by the Marine Corps, kind of they did, tanks and scout snipers. And there was really nowhere for me to go unless I really, my options were artillery and cook, which that's not why I had joined the Marine Corps. I didn't want to do those things. And in conjunction with that was the fact that I'd gotten, hurt and I was going to either have to rehab and really, really, do some hard work to maintain the Marine Corps standard. And so I got out, my command and I looked at each other and said, this is the score. This is what's going to be, we can try to do this, but, things are not going to be good if you can't meet the standard. And I've told people before, I didn't take umbrage at that. I didn't hate them for that. That's the kind of world the Marine Corps is. If you cannot meet the standard, you're going to be, moved out. And it should be that way. So I didn't have like a true leadership story, I felt, as a Lance Corporal. I mean, there were certain things where I had to do certain things with the hawk gear when I was sitting behind the scopes, you know, trying to get stuff done out in the desert under extreme, circumstances, but nothing like leadership until I thought about, this, because, my story was a very brief time, but a time where I was completely left alone and left to my own devices for that period of time. And looking back, I'm like, I don't know why they did it that way. I never figured that out. I never figured out why I was the one asked to do what I was asked to do. But, to your point, I figured, well, this is not the time to go goof off. This isn't, you know, time away from work. This is a task, an honor to do this for this Marine and make sure that Marine gets the treatment, and more importantly, the parents get the treatment that this Marine deserves. And I think I was very clear in the book, what I was going through during that time. And years later, it's been 30 years since I was in the Marine Corps. Since I joined the Marine Corps, it was May of 1995 is when I went in, and then this happened a couple of years after. And I still remember a lot of that. Some of it I don't remember that well, but that was it, right? I was trying to find something where it was truly unique, one, and then I wanted a way to honor that Marine's memory.
I think it's clear to the readers what Shelley meant to you. But could you put it in your own words, the type of camaraderie that you shared with her prior to her death?
Well, good old Shelley was a corporal and a WM. We called them WMs back then. I still call them WMs now. I don't care what they say. My Green Monster says female Marines are called WMs, so they can get over it. But, she worked in Motor T, and, some of these female Marines would take time out of their day just like the male Marines would. Some of them, some NCOs, the end of the workday, they want nothing to do with the E3s and below. They're all good. But, that was a corporal that, come in uniform inspection time, for whatever reason, would make sure, and it wasn't just H&S battery where she was, it was also the Hawk batteries. If she liked you, you were, step down there and report to her room, and she would, check your uniform out. And if you were lacking, you got strong. And if you were, in field goal range, you were, spruced up. And if you passed her muster, you had a pretty good shot of passing the first sergeant's uniform inspection. So there was that, right? And then, for hawkers, we drove our gear everywhere we went. So we had to get really like Motor T savvy a lot more than other MOSs. And so, she was not the Motor T chief, but she was like the second NCOIC non-commissioned officer in charge of the Motor T and LAM. And that's the Light Anti-Aircraft Missile Battalion. And you want to get on her good side, because if you needed a trip ticket, filled out quick, or, some help with your truck, you want to make sure you were on her good side. And if you were, you know, the process was easy. I mean, in the military, you just don't go down and pull out a vehicle and just start driving it. There's paperwork, pages of paperwork, and then there's an inspection, a rollout inspection, and then there's a post rollout inspection and cleanup. And it's not your truck, it's the government's truck. So the Motor T people, and Motor T just stands for motor transport. They check it to make sure that that the truck's not damaged or needs anything. And so they have a very important job. But again, we hawkers will, I drove a six-wheel drive 5-ton everywhere I went with my gear. I usually pulled the launcher and had gear in the back of it, and we'd go out in the desert 30-40 miles, and I'd have to return it. And there she was, standing there with the clipboard, and you knew that it was going to be a long haul before you got home. And some Marines who didn't get the message, had a much longer haul than Marines who got the message. So she was very effective about making sure the standards were upheld. And it makes sense. If you can't roll the truck out to pull your gear, if the truck is going to break down because you're not, taking care of it, then the whole system stops. So you understood it after a while, but it's not too much fun when your buddies are going home and you're having to PM that truck because you didn't do it before. I never had that problem, but maybe I was a quick learner, Gina. I don't know, but she was that kind of person, and sometimes on weekends, off duty, she really we had to polish her boots back then, and she'd be watching football. Now Shelley liked the Carolina Panthers a lot, which I never understood because she's from Arkansas, but she liked the Carolina Panthers and had a huge crush on Kerry Collins, and knew all the stats, got the newspaper, she could watch the stats, and you might be watching the Cowboys game or the Buffalo Bills game or the Saints game, but if the Carolina Panthers were on, you're watching the Carolina Panthers game with her, whether you liked it or not. Rank has its privileges. What can I say? And so after a while, you get to know this person, and yeah, there's that rank structure, right? You're not supposed to fraternize with, you know, junior enlisted troops or junior troops, but it wasn't ever like that. It was just like, hey, here's an NCO that you know will show you the right way to do things as far as your uniform and Marine Corps knowledge. Great. When you're going to get your truck out, they're going to be tough but fair, and make sure the truck rolls out right when you're pulling your gear. And then off duty, she liked working in her Toyota Tacoma, and I'm from Louisiana. I mean, I lived in Louisiana for a while, and she's from Arkansas, so we had that in common. So after a while, a friendship did form, and it wasn't just like I wouldn't say we were brother and sister, but we got along pretty good. And it was really funny because we're in completely different MOSs, completely different things, but we got along great.
So your story lays out, a sense of camaraderie between the two of you, and I could feel that. I could feel her personality in your story. You made her come to life for me. And what I saw was in the story instances of probably thousands and thousands of Marines and sailors, how we bond as teammates and share the same type of camaraderie when we're away from home for the holidays. You made that Christmas feel real to me when you talk about that. Um, did Shelley have that effect on other Marines in your
Yep,
battery?
yep. I mean, again, she was H&S headquarters and support, and we were in the land batteries, but we all stayed in the same barracks. So the WMs had their section of the barracks that was, blocked off for them, and then we had ours. But you intermingled and you'd see each other, and again, like I told you, we're going up for a uniform inspection, and Shelley and a couple of the other corporals and sergeants that were not married, where not many of them, but enough of them to if you showed some effort on your alphas or your dress blues or your camis as we call them, they look for stuff that they knew that the first sergeant or battery gunny might look for, and help you out. If you're trying to pass a board, they would take your questions and pass a board. Shelley had a guide on. I don't know how she got the guide on, but she had one, and she would take you through how to use the guide on and drill. And for a lance corporal trying to go meritorious corporal or pass a board, so you can be in that promotion conversation. That kind of knowledge, that kind of work through is valuable, right? And again, these NCOs don't have to do that. They're off their normal job, and we're not even in their platoon, in their section, but we knew they were the ones that if we wanted to succeed and get some real info about how to succeed, they're the ones to go to. And so I think I wasn't just the only one that she was around in that regard. And a lot of us watched football in the big common room on a Sunday, and there she is polishing her boots, encouraging Kerry Collins to go down the field. It was pretty funny.
So it sounds like, in what I read in your story and what you just said, maybe there was a sense of family.
Yep. Yep. I would say so. You know, when you're thousands of miles away from home, and you know, a lot of times um, you don't have family close, or this is way before the internet and free phone calls and free texting. You know, and that phone call is going to cost $7 to make. You know, these Marines became your family. You know, so some your older brother, your younger brother, and some of these WMs were like your sisters. You know, annoying, kind of like somebody else I know who can be annoying. You know, in your, you know, I'm gonna check in on you. I'm like, no, don't do that. I'm good, and you know, you don't have to worry about that. And sure enough, 45 minutes later, like, you remembered? You shouldn't be here. I'm good. Yeah, I'm gonna make sure, right? And when you have that, you know, life gets better, and you don't feel so alone. And yeah, there was a holiday at Christmas I spent in Yuma. No snow, uh, no frost, and you know, we decorated a Christmas tree together. Which for most people is just like, what's the big deal? Well, you know, you got, you know, five Marines who are from different parts of the country, you know, all different, you know, agreeing to how to decorate this Christmas tree. And we thought for certain the first sergeant was going to make us take it out of the barracks, but you know, first sergeant, let's keep it. How about that? So it's times like that make the whole thing worth it. It's as you know, you've been in the military for a very long time. It's hard on a good day. What we do is hard on a good day, much less when things are going bad, things are going awry. You know, things didn't work out as planned, or somebody, I can't imagine what it was like for you when one of your sailors messed up on the weekend and you're taking the beat down for that. But it's hard, right? And when you have these little times where we can just be people and be there for each other, there's nothing like that. And I don't think there's anything else in life, not even college, that gives you that same kind of experience.
Very well said. Very well said. You came from a big family, right? You have a lot of brothers and
I
sisters.
do. I do.
How many?
I'm the eldest of, well, let's just put it like this. I have five brothers. No, no. I'm the eldest of nine. I got a half sister.
Okay. All right.
The
So
eldest,
being a,
which sucked. It's terrible. We went through everything first.
I bet you
Crazy.
changed a few diapers too.
I can change diapers with the best of them. Absolutely. I can change diapers, burp babies, feed babies, rock them to sleep. I'm looking down at my little brother, and I'm 20 years older than he is. It's like, this is crazy. This could be my kid. What's going on here?
So for a Marine that comes from a big family, I can just imagine the sense of camaraderie and family among your fellow Marines and how
Sure,
important
sure.
that was to you. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
sometimes we, you know, fight and scrap and don't get along, and then we, you know, hug it out and make up, and you know, we might fight with each other, but you know, God help you if somebody else, you know, hits one of our own, then there's big problems. But yeah, they become your ride or die, you know. So and I've had some lifelong friendships when I think about it. You know, some people I've known for 30 years of my life, and we still keep in contact. Some of the people I went to Hawk School with that I still keep in contact with and know, and some people that served. I mean, a lot of us in my Hawk class served in Charlie Battery, and a lot of us served in First and Second Platoon with the guys I went to Hawk School with. And you know, not everybody, but as you know, but the ones that do, it's kind of crazy. You know, 30 years and we're still, you know, talking to each other, remembering stuff that happened 30 years ago. It's you know, I've heard it said before that your military days are some of the best days of your life, and I would agree. I would agree.
Absolutely.
All the challenges and problems and pain and suffering notwithstanding, it's really it was a good time.
I think it's pretty remarkable that you're still in touch with those folks from 30 years ago. It's for me, I served for 28 years and I kept in touch with a couple of women from my basic training class, but we lost touch eventually. So, are there people still that you're in contact with that remember Shelley?
Yep, yep. There are, and for a lot of them, they remember what happened, and everybody moves on their own time. I mean, I'm not certain time heals all wounds, but time certainly takes the sting away.
Yeah.
And again, for me and Shelley, I would say that's true. I mean, over time, it's it's not as prevalent as it used to be, but it's still something that happened. I think for me, as I explained, well, I don't really explain this, but for me, when you got the final briefing about what had happened, you realize it could have been prevented, and that's what made it really tough.
Right.
It should have never happened, and it's easy to point fingers and blame people, but the easy thing to say is it just should have never happened. And then you realize, you know, if I may, I'm gonna get on my soapbox here for a minute.
Please.
I hear all the time that we who did not serve in combat and did not deploy aren't really we really didn't serve because we weren't in danger. And I go back to this time and realize, well, you know, the equipment that we worked on was powered by generators that could power a small city block. So it was dangerous there. It was built in a time when, it's very mechanical, very hands-on, and if you did not respect our gear, it would kill you with a certainty. Those missiles weighed 1,500 pounds apiece. There's three of them on a launcher, and if you don't have a pin, if you don't have a bracing bar on the launcher the right way, that thing's going to tip over and it's going to kill you. If you don't respect what the radars are doing, it's going to, you're going to get blasted with radar waves, and it's going to mess you up. This stuff is loud, very, very loud, and you've got to be aware of what's going on there. And then I tell people, look, when you have a MiG-29 on full afterburner getting ready to drop a harm missile on you, it gets real quick when you start doing the math, figuring out how much time you actually have to engage that target and go on. So, yeah, I didn't serve in combat. A lot of us in LAM didn't, but we got reminded that being in the military can be a very dangerous thing to do. And oh yeah, by the way, this is no exaggeration. We were training all year round. In the summertime, we'd get to be 117 to 128 degrees outside, and they expected us to be outside working because, well, if you can't train in 128 degrees heat, you're not going to be able to be effective, which is kind of messed up when you think about it. But that's what we did, right? So there's constant stress on our bodies, constant, danger we had to look out for, and you had to be right to do it, right? And we got reminded when this happened just how dangerous stuff could get with a couple of minor things lost and forgotten. In fact, I talked to one of the lieutenants who's now a major. She retires a major, and they kept saying all the time, like, we're surprised more people didn't get hurt. We're surprised we didn't have more accidents. And they just chalked it up to is we trained and trained and trained to prevent that kind of thing from happening. So that is to say that if you're a veteran and you're made to feel like you're less than because you were not in combat or you didn't, serve in a frontline, infantry weapons company job, that your service wasn't valuable or it wasn't without its own set of peril. And I'm here to tell you that I understand where you're coming from, and you served and you did the job when no one else could, and you did the best way you could, and you should be proud. You should be proud of what you've accomplished, especially, for doing that for your fellow Marines. So that's kind of what I want to say about that, Gina.
Thank you for pointing that out. I think, like you, I also I deployed, but I didn't deploy to a combat zone. And what I have to say in response to what you said is our training and our experiences are arduous. The countless hours that we work 7 days a week, and the watches that we stand, and the all-nighters that we pull. It's arduous duty. You're right. It might not be combat with bullets, shooting at us downrange. However, we're giving hours of our life, years of our life in service to our country. And if we were given the opportunity to deploy to a combat zone, we would have embraced it with
Yeah,
all our hearts.
yeah,
The other thing I wanted to say about your story, I love how you zero in on the camaraderie You talk about how it feels to be away from home at the holidays, the nostalgia, the shared experiences. But I also like the humor that you use in your story. And tell us what the name Ole Weeza means.
Oh God, Ole Weeza. So, um, Steel Magnolias came out around was it 92 or 93, around that time. And, VCRs being what VCRs were, for whatever reason, all the WMs loved watching that movie. We could never figure it out. They couldn't even tell you why they did it. But on, some Friday or Saturday nights, they'd all have popcorn and watch Steel Magnolias. And, it's kind of a funny thing for me because, we moved to Louisiana from Illinois, and I've been several times to Natchitoches, Louisiana, where that was filmed. A lot of that was filmed there. And they they hit the Southern woman
Mm.
perfectly. And, you know, Shirley MacLaine plays Weeza, or, Ole Weeza, what they call her, this, crotchety, in your face Southern woman who takes no guff from anybody, sharp tongue, can, dress you down, and is in a bad mood most of the time. And, you know, that's the kind of front that, Shelley put on until you got to know her. And then, once you were in, you were in. But if you didn't know her, or, God forbid, you messed up one of her trucks, you were getting the old Weeza treatment. So, kind of like a lot of things, you go in the military, you get a nickname, or they pick out something they want to make fun of, and it just sticks your entire career, whether you like it or not. And that's what stuck for her.
So I think back to that movie, and I think if Shirley MacLaine had served in the military, she'd probably be a Marine, a woman Marine, WM, gunny sergeant. That's how I picture her in that movie.
Probably, yeah.
I love that. Well, in wrapping up, tell your viewers what it meant for you to be a featured author in this book.
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, it's completely surprising. I didn't, you surprised me with that. And it meant a lot to me because, we've done other book projects where, I've not been the featured author. Um, I've done book projects where I'm in the book. I'm not going to mention it here, but for a fact, I did a book project not with you, but way before I met you, and was not listed as one of the authors in the book. If you look in the book, I'm not. My story's in there, but I'm not listed. And according to what I was told, the publisher didn't think that it was, of the quality that needed to reference me as an author. Coincidentally, Faye Simon read the same story and thought it was one of the best things she'd ever written. So I'm used to one side of the coin where, okay, you're telling me it really stunk, but I don't know, a lot of people liked it. Okay. But this time to be made the featured author and to see my name out there in front, um, really is like, okay, I've got to see if I can really make my contribution, do it in a way where people want to read the rest of the stories. So to me, Gina, it wasn't just about being the featured author in Lights, which is great. I love it. Thank you very much. But it's also, I felt like there was a sense of obligation and responsibility to set the stage for the other authors so you would keep turning the page. And so I tried very hard to say, hey, this whole concept of battle tested, leaderless leader, you're going to see that in other stories, and they're different from mine, but they still have value. So please keep reading, understand what's going on there. And I hope I communicated that well. I hope that it will resonate with people as they read the book. And, we're doing this. It's November 10th, the 250th birthday of the Marine Corps. And I felt like that was a real honor before the book launches tomorrow on Veterans Day. So to me, it wasn't just something I can just put in my, CV or LinkedIn or, media kit. To me, this is a part of a obligation. This is it's more than just a title. It's more than just a name. It's what's that mean? And I think that means that you I'm not tooting my own horn here, but I wanted to turn my manuscript in early. I wanted to be the first one in so you could look at it first and maybe see if it aligned to the vision you had. And if somebody was struggling with their chapter, well, here's what was written, and you can look at that and draw your own conclusions or ideas. Um, I wanted to, again, set the stage for the other authors coming behind me. And then I would say I really wanted to say, hey, this is what being a featured author means. This story is done at a level that, okay, that's why they're the featured author. We get it, and it's enough to make you want to read the entire book and understand all these people's stories.
You did that very, very well. And in fact, you set the mark high. And what we plan to do with the continuation of our series is we'll have a featured author with each of our future books. And I've already asked and identified, for the next three books. But you helped me create this, I guess you could call it a paradigm. Rugged Warrior Healing Coalition is about connection and alignment and bringing veterans together, much like Oscar Mike, giving veterans a voice, highlighting veterans in action. And it was an honor and a privilege to have you be our first featured author with your name, on the cover of the book. And I was very proud, and you did such a great job. And
Well,
I
thank
know
you.
everyone that's going to, you're welcome. Everyone that's going to read your story will identify, just like I did with Shelley, and the many holidays that we've spent, away from our families in the barracks, that camaraderie. And then, when a horrendous accident happens, the seriousness of the situation, uh, and the fact, again, that your leaders 30 years ago saw the same thing that I saw in you when I met you 4 years ago, and you rose to the occasion. And I feel like you did Shelley more than justice. So thank you for your story. And it was an
No,
honor to publish with you.
I was just humbled to do it, and I think my thing now is I'm going to try to find her parents. I haven't been successful yet, but I'm going to double my efforts and let them know that her life is touching other lives, and doing it that way. Her dad was a Marine, served his country honorably, and just good folks, good folks.
I know they'll be honored, to have her memorialized this way. And thank you for including her photograph and her obituary.
Yeah, I kept it, man. I did. We went to the base chapel to have the on base memorial service for the entire battalion, and that was a day. That was a day.
You're a good man, Travis Partington.
Well, I don't know about good, but I'm trying to be, and I think that's how I'd like to be remembered. Is I have my faults and flaws. I certainly do. I'm not perfect, but I try to get a little bit better every day.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. You shine the spotlight on thousands of other people all the time. And we need to do more of these interviews with you as
No, we don't.
interviewee and others as the host.
No, we don't.
Thank
We
you for
don't.
your time.
Let's the good idea fairy is coming out, Gina. Let's put that back. Beep beep. But no, I really enjoyed this time. I think it's really cool. We're doing it on the Marine Corps birthday, and what a great way to spend Veterans Day. And I'll close out with this. Look, folks. I mean, think about the World War One stories, the Civil War stories that we'll never hear from, or even Korean War stories that we just don't know anything about. Your service has value. Your life has value to your family and the people. If you get a chance like this to tell your story, go ahead and do it. I highly encourage you to do it. And I just think, Gina, this is going to grow to be its own thing. The points of light on the globe are, you know, getting more and more every time you do this. And I can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you. It's an honor to continue to work with you.
So I am my host tonight, Gina Alderman, U.S. Navy retired commander, and I am Travis, host of Oscar Mike Radio. Happy birthday, Marines! Happy
Happy birthday.
250th Chesty I know you're up there somewhere watching us. And Super Fidelis to you all. I'm Travis, Oscar Mike Radio, or Mission Flight, Ready to Fight. We'll see you next time.